The bar was racked, my elbows were locked, and my headphones were loud enough to erase the rest of the world. That was the whole point of coming to the gym at this hour. No calls, no family, no noise I didn't choose. I was midway through my second set when I felt it first. The shift in the room. Not a sound. A pause. Like the air got heavier and everyone's attention turned the same direction. I finished the rep anyway. Slow, controlled. I racked the weight, sat up, and pulled one ear cup off. That's when I saw them. 2 uniformed officers had just walked through the front doors and they weren't scanning the room like they were lost. They were moving with purpose, eyes already locked on me. Behind them, half a step back like she was directing traffic, my sister stood with her arms crossed, chin lifted, a face arranged into a calm that never meant calm. It meant performance. She pointed without even trying to hide it, loud enough for half the gym to hear. That's her. My throat tightened, but my face stayed neutral. I stood up, wiped my hands on my towel, and walked toward them before they could walk deeper into my space. Not rushing, not resisting. Just closing the distance so the crowd couldn't turn me into a spectacle. One officer, older, watched me approach. The other stayed slightly angled, eyes moving between my sister and me like he was already calculating the mess. "Ma'am," the older officer said, "can we speak with you at the front desk?" I nodded once. Yes. I didn't look at my sister. I didn't give her a reaction to film with her memory later. But I felt the weight of the stairs as I walked. People love an accusation, or they love the idea that something dramatic is happening and it isn't them. At the front desk, the gym employee, a young guy with a lanyard and panic in his eyes, froze like he had no idea what to do with law enforcement in a place that usually only dealt with expired cards and broken treadmills. The older officer pulled out a tablet. "I'm going to ask you a few questions," he said. "What is your name?" I said it. He confirmed my date of birth. Then he angled the tablet slightly so I could see the report header. The words on the screen hit like cold water. Fraud, theft, my name typed in black like it was already proven. My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed flat. "What is this about?" The younger officer spoke this time. "A report was filed claiming you used someone else's identity to access funds," he said. "And that you may be a threat to the reporting party." Threat. That word isn't an accident. It's a lever. It makes people step back. It makes employers nervous. It makes a gym turn quiet. My sister stepped closer, still behind the officers, and spoke like she was narrating a documentary. "She's been doing shady things for months," she said. "I told you, I have proof." The older officer didn't look at her. He looked at me. "Where were you earlier this evening?" he asked. I didn't say, "Are you serious?" I didn't say, "Ask her." I didn't say the million emotional things that would make me look unstable in front of witnesses. I asked one question instead. "What time was the report filed?" I said. The older officer paused. "Why does that matter?" he asked. "Because I'm not going to argue," I replied. "I'm going to line up facts." A few people nearby leaned in like they could smell a story. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly, not hostile, more like curious. He glanced at the top right of the report. 6:14 p.m., he said. I nodded once. "Okay," I said. "And what time does it claim the incident happened?" He scrolled. 6:10, he said. I looked at the gym employee. "Can you pull my check-in?" I asked. The kid blinked. Yeah," he stammered, hands moving too fast on the keyboard. My sister made a small scoffing sound. "That doesn't prove anything," she said. "She could have left and come back." I didn't look at her. I didn't debate her. I pulled my phone out, opened the app I used to track my workouts, and held it up at my side. Ready. The app wasn't for clout, it was for consistency. Time-stamped sets, location-tagged check-ins, and a little map dot that didn't care about anyone's feelings. The front desk computer chimed. The kid's eyes widened at the screen. "She checked in at 6:07, he said, voice cracking slightly. The older officer's gaze flicked to the monitor, then back to the tablet, then back to the monitor again. The younger officer leaned in, reading over the kid's shoulder. I said nothing, because the best part of the truth is that it doesn't need a speech. It just needs a timestamp. The older officer's expression changed in a way I'd learned to respect. Not sympathy, procedure. He turned the tablet slightly away from my sister's view and asked the kid, "Is there a camera on your entrance?" "Yes," the kid said quickly. "Front door, turnstiles, and the hallway." The officer nodded once, then looked at me again. "Have you been inside the building since you checked in?" he asked. "No," I said. "I walked in, scanned my membership, and I've been on the floor." My sister stepped forward again. "She's lying," she said louder. "She always lies. She's—" The older officer held up a hand, still not looking at her, and said, "Ma'am, let us do our job." That was the first time he'd spoken to her like she wasn't the director of the scene. My sister's face tightened. The older officer tapped his screen, then spoke quietly to the younger officer. They exchanged a look, the kind of look that happens when two professionals realize a report was filed with confidence, but the timeline doesn't survive 5 seconds of verification. Then the older officer turned to me and said, "Do you know who filed this?" I didn't flinch. I didn't act shocked. I just let my eyes move to my sister for the first time. She stared back like she'd been waiting for that moment all day. "I can guess," I said calmly. The older officer's gaze followed mine. He looked at my sister. And then, finally, he looked at the report again, specifically the section that listed the reporting party and the contact number. His thumb hovered, like he was confirming what he was about to say out loud. Then he leaned slightly toward his partner and whispered, so low only the two of them could hear it, but I saw the words on his lips anyway. "That can't be." My sister's smile flickered just for a second. Not fear, not guilt. More like annoyance that the room wasn't obeying her script. The older officer straightened and said, "Ma'am," looking directly at my sister now, "I need you to step over here and show me your identification." And when he said the next sentence, the entire front desk area went dead silent. Because it wasn't a question. It was a correction. And it put her, not me, on the record. My sister's chin lifted like she was insulted by the request. "I don't need to show you anything," she said, loud enough for people near the smoothie bar to hear. "I'm the one who called you." The older officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply repeated himself with the calm that makes a room obey. "Ma'am," he said, "show me your identification." My sister smiled tightly and reached into her gym bag like she was doing them a favor. She pulled out her driver's license and held it up between 2 fingers, not offering it fully, like she still thought she controlled the scene. That the officer took it anyway, the way law enforcement takes something that might become important later. With intent. He compared the name on her ID to the reporting party name on the tablet. Then he looked up at her slowly. "Your report lists a different name," he said. My sister's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. "It's my middle name," she said quickly. "I use it sometimes." The officer didn't react to the explanation. He looked down again, scrolled, and tapped the timestamp of the call. Then he looked at me. "Ma'am," he said, "your gym check-in was 6:07. "Yes," I replied. He turned to my sister again. "Your report claims the incident happened at 6:10, he said, "and that you were physically present." My sister crossed her arms, trying to look bored. "I was," she said, but the younger officer leaned closer to the tablet, eyes narrowing. "Then explain something," he said, voice quieter now. My sister glanced at him like he was beneath her. He tapped a line on the screen. "The report was filed from a number registered to your plan," he said, "and it shows your device location when you called." My sister's posture stiffened. "So?" she snapped. The younger officer looked toward the front desk computer, then back to her. Your device location at 6:14 p.m. is not here, he said. The air shifted again. Not gossip now. Attention. The older officer didn't say the address out loud. He didn't need to. He turned the tablet slightly away from the crowd and asked my sister one simple question. Where were you at 6:14? He said. My sister laughed too quickly. What is this? She said. An interrogation? Hey, I just came in with you. The older officer's eyes didn't move. Where were you? He repeated. At 6:14? My sister's mouth tightened. Her gaze flicked toward me, and there it was. Her real irritation. Not fear of being wrong, fear of losing control. I was in my car, she said, in the parking lot. The officer nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Then you'll have no problem with us verifying it. He turned to the gym employee. Sir, he said, pull your entrance camera footage from 6 p.m. to 6:30. The kid swallowed hard and nodded, fingers shaking as he clicked through menus. My sister leaned toward him. You can't show them that, she snapped. That's private. The older officer didn't look away from the tablet. It's not private when it's relevant to a false report, he said. False report. That phrase dropped into the space like a weight. People started stepping back, not from me now, but from her. My sister noticed immediately. She turned, scanning faces like she wanted to catch loyalty in someone's expression. But what she found was discomfort. Confusion. Phones lowered, smiles fading. The younger officer looked at me again. Do you have any reason to believe your sister would file this report maliciously? He asked. I didn't answer emotionally. I answered clinically. She's trying to remove me from our business, I said. And she keeps pushing situations where my name is attached to something ugly. The older officer's gaze flicked up at that. A business dispute, he said, more to himself. My sister snapped, She's lying. She's always been jealous. I didn't look at her. I looked at the older officer. I'm not asking you to believe me, I said. I'm asking you to check the record. The officer held my gaze for a beat, then nodded once like he respected the framing. The front desk monitor loaded the camera feed. The gym employee scrubbed to the timestamp. 6:07. On the screen, I watched myself walk in, hood up, headphones around my neck, scanning my membership at the turnstile. I didn't look around. I didn't stop. I went straight past the desk. The older officer leaned in. Then the employee advanced the footage. 6:10. I was visible in the background near the free weights. 6:14. I was still there. 6:16. Still there. The timeline was clean. The younger officer exhaled through his nose. So she didn't leave, he murmured. My sister's face held steady for a second, like she could still will it into being irrelevant. And then she tried to pivot. Okay, she said, too bright. Maybe I mixed up the time. I was stressed. The older officer lifted his eyes to her. The time isn't the only problem, he said. He tapped the tablet again and turned it slightly so she could see. The report states you witnessed her committing theft and fraud in person, he said. It also includes a written statement that she threatened you. My sister's eyes flicked across the screen. That's true, she said. The older officer's voice stayed flat. And yet you were not physically present, he said. And she was here, on camera, inside this building. My sister's lips parted, and for the first time she looked caught, not ashamed, trapped. The younger officer stepped closer to her now, shifting the dynamic so the crowd could see it without being told. Ma'am, he said, filing a false report is serious. My sister's voice rose. I didn't file a false report, she snapped. I reported what I believed. The older officer didn't argue belief. He pointed at the statement field. You wrote details that require you to have been there, he said. You described clothing. You described a conversation. You described the exact moment she stole. My sister stared at him like she couldn't believe he was reading her words back to her. Then her eyes darted to me. And in that moment, I knew what she was going to do next, because it's what she always did when she started losing on facts. She was going to accuse me of forcing her, of threatening her, of making her lie. She took one step toward me, chin shaking slightly, performing now. She scared me, my sister said loudly, turning to the crowd. She's dangerous. She told me. The older officer raised his hand. Stop, he said. One word, not yelled, just placed. My sister froze mid-sentence, eyes flashing. The officer turned to the gym employee. Sir, he said, do you have membership records for her? Check-in history? The kid nodded quickly and typed. A second later, his eyes widened. She didn't check in, he said quietly. Not today. My sister snapped, I came in with you. The older officer's gaze narrowed. You entered behind us? He asked. My sister's mouth opened, then closed. Because she realized what he was implying. She used the police to gain access without checking in, like she was entitled to the building the same way she felt entitled to everything else. The younger officer glanced at the tablet again. Her device location at 614 matches an address, he said to his partner, low. The older officer nodded once. Then he looked at my sister and said very calmly, Ma'am, you're going to come with us to the side so we can take an accurate statement. My sister's face hardened. I'm not going anywhere, she snapped. The older officer didn't raise his voice. Yes, you are, he said. And then he added the sentence that made my sister's expression shift from anger to something colder. Because right now, he said, it appears you used law enforcement to publicly accuse someone while knowing your report was false. The gym was silent. Even the treadmills sounded quieter, like the room was holding its breath. My sister looked around, realizing she no longer had an audience. She had witnesses. And when she looked back at me, her eyes narrowed with pure hatred. You did this, she mouthed. I didn't respond, because I hadn't done anything. I just let her own words meet the record. The older officer gestured toward a quieter corner near the office door. Ma'am, he said again, this way. She hesitated, just long enough for her pride to fight her survival instinct. Then she moved. But as she walked past me, she leaned close and hissed under her breath. Dad's going to finish what this started. My stomach tightened. Not because of the threat, because she said it like it wasn't a guess. Like she already knew what would happen next. And before I could process that, the younger officer turned to me and said, Ma'am, we need to talk about something else. What? I asked. He lowered his voice. The report isn't just about you being a threat, he said. There's a financial flag attached. He tapped the tablet once and showed me a line I hadn't seen earlier. Outstanding warrant review. Pending verification. My breath caught. The older officer looked up from where he was leading my sister away and said, We need to confirm something at the station. The world narrowed for a second, because I realized the lie wasn't meant to embarrass me in a gym. It was meant to put me in a car. And the person who would benefit most from me disappearing for a few hours, long enough to lose everything, wasn't my sister. It was whoever she was working with. The younger officer didn't grab my arm or snap cuffs on me. He did something worse for my nervous system. He spoke gently, like this was already decided. Ma'am, he said, we need to verify something at the station. I kept my face neutral. Am I being detained? I asked. He blinked like he didn't expect the question from someone in gym clothes with a sweat towel in her hand. Not at this moment, he said carefully. But we can't clear the flag here. Then I'm coming voluntarily, I said. And I'm bringing my phone, my ID, and my bag. The older officer was still off to the side with my sister, his body angled in a way that blocked her from drifting back into the crowd. She was talking with her hands now, louder than she needed to be, trying to project innocence. I didn't give her a glance. I turned to the front desk employee. Can you print my check-in receipt? I asked. His eyes widened like he hadn't considered that a check-in could be evidence. Yeah, he said quickly. Yes, 1 second. The younger officer watched me and then nodded once as if he understood what I was doing. The employee handed me a small paper slip. Time-stamped, boring, perfect. I folded it and put it in my phone case like it belonged there. Then I pointed at my locker key, still on my wrist. I need my things, I said. The younger officer agreed to walk with me to the locker room entrance. He didn't go inside, just stood at the threshold while I retrieved my bag, my car keys, and my ID. When I came back out, the gym felt different. Not loud, not hostile, just full of eyes. The kind of eyes that will remember you as that woman the police came for, even after you're cleared, because people prefer the first version of a story. My sister noticed the shift, too. Her voice rose, sharp and performative. See? She said, pointing at me like she was narrating my downfall. They're taking her. And I told you, she's dangerous. The older officer's jaw tightened. He didn't answer her. He simply said to his partner, "Let's go." As we walked out, I heard my sister say, louder than she needed to, "I'm doing this for my safety." I didn't turn around, because the record doesn't care why she claims she did it. It only cares what she did. In the patrol car, the younger officer sat in the front and didn't treat me like a criminal. That almost made it worse because it gave my mind room to run. "What is the flag?" I asked. He kept his eyes forward. "It's a system alert tied to a financial complaint," he said. "It's not a confirmed warrant. It's a pending review that requires verification." "So someone filed something and attached my name," I said. He didn't deny it. "Something like that," he replied. I stared out the window at stoplights and storefronts and thought about how fast reputations can be torn with one form and one confident voice, and how my sister always sounded confident when she was lying. At the station, I wasn't put in a cell. I was put in a small waiting area with hard chairs and a TV that wasn't playing anything. A desk officer took my ID and typed while I sat with my hands resting on my thighs, still controlled, breathing slow. The younger officer disappeared down a hallway. I could hear my sister's voice somewhere deeper in the building. Sharp, wounded, loud enough to travel. She was still performing, even here. A desk officer returned my ID and said, "Ms. Monroe, sit tight." He said my name like it was just paperwork, but I noticed the way he said it. Careful. Like he wasn't sure which version of me he'd been told to expect. I didn't give him a version. I gave him calm. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then the older officer appeared again, holding the tablet and a paper file. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. "Ms. Monroe," he said, "I'm going to ask you a few questions." "Okay," I replied. He sat across from me, not too close, and glanced down at the report. "Do you have any prior arrests?" he asked. "No," I said. "Any restraining orders?" he asked. "No," I said again. "Any pending civil suits?" he asked. "Not that I'm aware of," I said. He tapped his tablet with his thumb, scrolling. Then he asked, "Have you ever used another person's identity to access funds?" "No," I replied, and I didn't add anything. No speeches, no sarcasm, just the answer. He studied my face for a second, then nodded once like he'd expected that. "Here's the issue," he said. "Your sister's report triggered an alert that matches a financial complaint in another jurisdiction." I kept my voice steady. "Matches how?" I asked. He hesitated. "Name match," he said, and other identifying info that was provided in the report. I felt something cold slide through my chest. "Other identifying info," I repeated. He didn't answer directly. He asked another question instead. "Do your family members have access to your old addresses, your employer information, your date of birth?" he said. "Yes," I replied. He nodded slowly, because that was the first time he allowed the implication to exist without saying it. Someone had padded the report with enough personal data to make it stick. He held up the tablet. This is marked as pending verification, he said, meaning we have to confirm whether it's actually you associated with that complaint. How do you confirm? I asked. He looked at the desk officer across the room. We call the originating agency, he said. We compare identifiers, physical descriptors, documentation. I exhaled slowly. Then do that, I said. He nodded once and stood up. While he made the call, I stared at the station's scuffed floor tiles and listened to my sister's voice echoing faintly down the corridor. Still talking, still insisting, still trying to keep the narrative loud enough to drown out procedure. After a few minutes, the older officer returned. His expression had shifted again, less neutral now, more certain. Ms. Monroe, he said, the originating agency says the subject tied to that complaint has a different date of birth and a different physical description. I didn't let relief show on my face yet. So it's not me, I said. He nodded. It appears to be a false association, he said. Meaning someone used my name to trigger it, I replied. He didn't deny it. He simply said, We're not done. He gestured down the hallway. We need you to give a formal statement, he said. And we're going to document your sister's report as well. I stood up calmly. Am I free to leave? I asked. Yes, he said, then added. But I strongly recommend you stay until we finish the report because this needs to be on record as a potential false report. I nodded. I'm staying, I said. He led me to a small interview room, plain table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner. Not dramatic, just official. He asked me to recount the timeline from the moment the officers walked into the gym. I told it cleanly. I mentioned my check-in time, the front desk footage, and the printed check-in receipt. Then I said, She wasn't checked in today. She entered behind you. The officer's jaw tightened slightly. We noted that, he said. He asked, Do you have a history of disputes with your sister? Yes, I replied, careful. She escalates when she feels threatened. Right now she's trying to damage my reputation. Why? He asked. I kept it factual. She wants control, I said. Over family assets and business decisions. He looked up sharply at the word business. What business? He asked. I gave the name. He wrote it down. Then he asked something that made my throat tighten. Does your sister have access to company accounts? He said. Yes, I replied. And she has a pattern of using my name when she needs something to look official. The officer nodded slowly and wrote that too. When my statement was done, he stepped out. I sat alone for a minute, hands still, and listened to the hum of fluorescent lights. Then the younger officer came back in and said, We need to speak to you in the hallway. I followed him out. My sister was sitting on a bench with her arms crossed, eyes bright with anger, like she was offended she hadn't been believed instantly. She didn't look scared. She looked inconvenienced. The older officer stood in front of her, holding the tablet. Ma'am, he said, we've confirmed Ms. Monroe was at the gym during the time your report claims she was committing these actions elsewhere. My sister scoffed. So what? She snapped. She can do things from her phone. The officer didn't argue theory. He read her own words back to her. Your report says you physically witnessed her, he said. It describes a conversation you claim happened at 6:10. It describes a threat you claim she made to you in person. My sister's mouth tightened. I was scared, she said, voice shifting into victim mode. The older officer raised a hand. No, he said. Not a performance? Facts. The word performance wasn't in his mouth, but it was in his tone. My sister's eyes flashed. You're taking her side, she snapped. The older officer stayed calm. I'm taking the record's side, he said. And then he turned the tablet slightly so she could see a line she hadn't expected anyone to notice. Also, he said, Your report included identifiers that triggered an unrelated financial alert tied to another jurisdiction. My sister blinked. Good, she said, leaning into it. Because she's a fraud? The older officer's expression hardened. The alert wasn't her, he said. Different date of birth. Different person. My sister's face changed for the first time. Just a flicker. Then she recovered fast. Too fast. Well, maybe she used fake info, she snapped. The officer held her gaze. Or maybe you padded your report with personal data to make it stick, he said, voice flat. My sister's lips parted. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. The older officer nodded once like he'd heard that line 1,000 times. Then he said, We're going to play the audio of your call. My sister froze. Not for long, but long enough. And the officer tapped his tablet and looked at me. Ms. Monroe, he said, I need you to listen carefully. I nodded. He pressed play. My sister's voice filled the hallway. High, controlled, urgent. She said my name. She described me. She used the words fraud and theft like she'd practiced them. And then, underneath her voice, I heard something else. A second voice. Lower. Male. Not on the line as a dispatcher. Closer, like he was in the same room as her, feeding her phrasing. Say she threatened you, the voice murmured. My sister's voice immediately followed it, obedient. She threatened me. The older officer's eyes moved from the screen to my sister, then back to me. And he asked a question so quietly it felt like the floor shifted. Ms. Monroe, he said, do you recognize that second voice? For a second, I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, because the moment I said it out loud, it stopped being a gym incident and became a family operation. The older officer watched my face closely. He wasn't looking for drama. He was looking for certainty. Ms. Monroe, he prompted again. Do you recognize that second voice? I swallowed once and kept my tone flat. I recognize it, I said. But I want the audio preserved before I say who it is. My sister's head snapped toward me. What? She barked. You're insane. The older officer didn't look at her. He just nodded at me, like that answer was exactly what a credible person would say. It will be preserved, he said. Then he turned to my sister. Ma'am, who was with you when you made the call? No one, she said instantly, too fast. I was alone. The younger officer's gaze didn't move, but his voice hardened. We just heard a second voice telling you what to say, he replied. My sister lifted her chin. That could be anything, she snapped. A TV, a podcast, someone in the background. The older officer's tone stayed calm. Then it should be easy for you to explain, he said. Who was with you? My sister's eyes flicked down for a fraction of a second. Then she tried to lean into righteous indignation, like anger could overwrite a recording. This is harassment, she said. I called because I felt unsafe. The older officer nodded once, like he'd heard that script before. Give me your phone, he said. My sister froze. Excuse me? We need to preserve evidence, he said. Your call, your notes, your report submission. You can't take my phone, she said, voice rising. That's private. The younger officer stepped closer. It's not private if it's evidence in a false report, he said. My sister looked at me like I'd pulled the phone out of her hand myself. You're loving this, she hissed. I didn't respond, because the truth was I wasn't loving anything. I was watching the exact moment her confidence stopped working. She clutched her phone tighter. I'm not giving you anything, she said. The older officer didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He simply said, if you refuse voluntarily, we will seek a warrant. My sister laughed sharply. Over a misunderstanding at a gym? The older officer's eyes stayed steady. Over a report alleging fraud, theft, and threats. He corrected. Over a report that appears knowingly false. Over an attempt to trigger a financial flag and involve multiple agencies. My sister's lips parted, and for the first time she looked like she realized she'd filed something bigger than a scene. Then she did what she always did when the record turned on her. She tried to drag the conversation back into feelings. Fine, she snapped, turning her face toward the hallway like she needed an audience. If you want the truth, she's been stealing from our family for years. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. She thinks she can— Stop, the older officer said, sharper now. We are not taking a new story. We are taking a statement about the report you filed today. My sister's face flushed. I want a lawyer, she snapped. The older officer nodded once. You're free to request counsel, he said, and you're free to stop talking. My sister went very still after that, jaw tight, phone still in her hand like a lifeline. The older officer turned back to me. Ms. Monroe, he said quietly, you asked us to preserve the audio before identifying the voice. That's smart, but I need to know if you believe someone coached her to file this. I kept my tone neutral. Yes, I said. And I believe it wasn't just to embarrass me. He nodded slowly. Why do you think it was? He asked. I didn't guess. I gave him the motive that matched the method. Time, I said. They needed me removed from the public for a few hours, long enough for something else to happen. The younger officer's eyebrows rose slightly. Like what? He asked. I exhaled through my nose. Access, I said. Accounts. Documents. A meeting I couldn't show up to. The older officer studied me for a beat, then nodded once. Do you have your phone? He asked. Yes, I said. Check it, he said. Right now. I didn't move fast. I didn't make a show. I simply pulled my phone out, opened my notifications, and felt my stomach drop as soon as I saw the first one. A login alert. Then another. Then a third. Not for social media, for money, for my business banking portal, for a payroll system I barely used anymore but still had tied to my name, and for an email account I kept for legal documents. Attempted access, multi-factor prompts, denied requests, all within the last hour while I was in the station. My hand tightened around the phone. The older officer leaned slightly to read the screen without touching it. His expression shifted into something colder. That's a lot of attempts, he said. I swallowed. They couldn't get in without me, I said. So they made sure I'd be somewhere I couldn't stop them. My sister's head snapped up. That's not true, she snapped, voice cracking slightly now. She's making things up. The younger officer looked at her. Your report was filed at 6:14, he said, and these access attempts began at 6:22. My sister's eyes widened just slightly. Not fear, recognition, like she knew the schedule. The older officer looked at me. Who would benefit from you being unavailable? He asked. I kept my voice even. My sister, I said, and anyone she's coordinating with. The older officer nodded and turned to the younger one. Call financial crimes, he said. The younger officer hesitated. Now? He asked. Now, the older officer repeated. My sister's face tightened again. This is ridiculous, she said. You're letting her manipulate you. The older officer didn't raise his voice. He held my sister's gaze and said very calmly, the only person who manipulated anything today is the person who filed a report with false time-stamped claims and coached phrasing on an audio recording. My sister's mouth opened, then shut. I watched her grip tighten on her phone. The older officer noticed too. He nodded toward it. One last time, he said, hand it over. My sister's voice turned shrill. No. The older officer's expression didn't change. Then you are choosing the hard path, he said. And you should understand what that means. My sister swallowed, eyes darting. Then she did something that told me everything without saying it. And she looked past the officers toward the station entrance like she was expecting someone to walk in and take control. I felt my spine go colder. Because I recognized that look. It was the look she used at family dinners when she'd push a boundary. Then wait for my parents to correct me, not her. The older officer followed her gaze and frowned slightly. Then, as if the universe wanted to confirm it, the front doors opened. A man walked in. Not a lawyer. Not a friend. My father. Still in a button-down. Still composed. Still wearing the face he used when he wanted other people to believe he was reasonable. My sister's shoulders dropped in relief the moment she saw him, like she'd been holding her breath. My father walked straight toward us. "What's going on?" he asked, voice calm, almost bored. And then he looked at me like I was the source of everyone's inconvenience. "Mara," he said, "why are you doing this here?" The older officer stepped forward, positioning himself between my father and my sister without being dramatic about it. "Sir," he said, "are you related to the reporting party?" My father's eyes flicked to the tablet, then to my sister, then back to the officer. "She's my daughter," he said. The officer nodded. "And do you know why she filed this report?" My father's smile tightened. "Because she was frightened," he said. "My other daughter has issues." Issues. That familiar word. The one families use when they want institutions to take you less seriously. The older officer didn't react to the insult. He asked the cleanest question possible. "Were you present when your daughter made the call?" he asked. My father didn't answer immediately, and that half-second pause felt louder than my sister's entire performance at the gym. My sister snapped, "Dad, tell them." My father exhaled like he was being forced into a ridiculous conversation. "I was with her earlier," he said carefully. "At home." At home. The older officer's jaw tightened slightly. "Sir," he said, "the call audio contains a second voice instructing her what to say." My father's eyes didn't move much, but his mouth tightened. "That could be anyone," he said. The older officer nodded slowly. "Then we'll identify it," he said. My father leaned forward slightly, voice softening into something more persuasive. "Officer, this is a family misunderstanding," he said. "We don't need to make this bigger." The older officer's tone stayed flat. "It got bigger when someone tried to use a false report to trigger a financial flag and remove someone from public view," he said. "We are now preserving evidence." My father's gaze flicked to my sister's phone. "Give it to them," he said, not kindly. My sister's head snapped toward him. "No," she hissed. My father's voice sharpened a fraction. "Give it to them," he repeated. And in that moment, something inside me settled into clarity. He didn't come here to protect her from police. He came here to control what police could see. The older officer watched the exchange like he was taking notes without writing them. Then he looked at me again. "Ms. Monroe," he said quietly, "I need you to answer one thing for the record." "Okay," I said. He held up the tablet, thumb hovering over the report metadata. "Do you believe your sister acted alone?" he asked. "Or do you believe this was coordinated with someone else?" I looked at my father, then at my sister, then back at the officer. And I gave the only answer that was honest and still controlled. "I believe she had help," I said. "And I believe the next proof is in the report metadata you're about to open." The older officer didn't react to my answer emotionally. He reacted like a professional who'd just been given permission to look deeper. He turned his tablet slightly away from the lobby traffic, tapped into the report details, and scrolled past the written narrative my sister had fed them. He went straight to the part most people never think about. Submission metadata. Who filed? From what device? From what account? From what address? The younger officer returned from his call with financial crimes and stood beside him, watching the screen. My father's face stayed composed, but I saw his eyes tracking the officer's thumb as it moved, like he knew exactly which lines would matter. My sister clutched her phone tighter. The older officer paused. Then he looked up. Not at me, at my father. "Sir," he said, "what is your full name?" My father blinked. "Elliot Monroe," he answered. The older officer nodded once and looked back down. Then he read a line out loud, slowly so it could enter the room like fact. "The report submission account used for this filing," he said, "is associated with an email address registered to Elliot Monroe." My sister's breath caught. My father's face didn't explode. It didn't crumble. It tightened. Just enough. "That's not possible," my father said, too quickly. "She must have used my email by mistake." The older officer didn't argue. He kept reading. "The device used to submit the report is tagged as EM iPhone," he said, "and the submitter IP resolves to a residential address." He glanced down again and spoke the last part like he was sealing it. "An address matching the one listed on your driver's license, sir." The air went dead still. Not in a dramatic way. In the way a room gets when a lie loses oxygen. My sister's eyes went wide and flicked to my father, searching for direction. My father's jaw worked once, like he was trying to decide which explanation would do the least damage. He chose the one families always choose when they've been caught on a record: blame technology. "Someone can spoof those things," he said. "My phone could have been used. My email could have been—" "Then we'll verify it," the older officer said calmly. "We'll request preservation from the reporting platform and carrier. We'll compare device identifiers. And we'll take a statement from both of you." My father's posture shifted slightly forward, voice lowering into persuasion again. "Officer," he said, "this is going too far. My daughter panicked. I may have helped her file because she was upset. That's all." Helped her file. He said it like it was harmless. Like it was a parent helping a child fill out a school form. The older officer didn't match his tone. He stayed procedural. "Sir," he said, "helping someone file a knowingly false report is not harmless." My father's eyes narrowed. "You're taking her side," he said, nodding toward me like I was the manipulator. The officer answered without hesitation. "I'm taking the timeline's side," he said. "And the timeline says she was in the gym on camera while the report claimed she was somewhere else committing fraud." My sister snapped, "She still did it." Then she stopped, realizing she'd just walked back into the part of the story that could be tested. The younger officer looked at her. "Did what?" he asked. My sister's mouth opened, then closed, because she couldn't keep the accusation vague anymore. And if she got specific, the record would crush her again. The older officer held up a hand, cutting off the noise. "Here's what's happening," he said. "We are documenting this as a false report with indicators of coordination. We are forwarding it to financial crimes due to the attempt to trigger a financial flag. We are requesting preservation of your devices and report submission data." My father's face hardened. "You can't just—" "We can," the officer interrupted, calm. "And we will." Then he turned to me, voice softer but still official. "Ms. Monroe," he said, "do you want to press charges for false reporting and harassment?" I felt the room tilt toward a decision. My sister stared at me like she was daring me. My father's eyes sharpened. Warning. In my chest, there was the old instinct to keep things quiet for the sake of the family. And then there was the new instinct, the one Adrian had taught me in a different life. Choose the record. "Yes," I said. One word, no speech, no revenge smile, just yes. My sister's face twisted. "You can't," she snapped. "We're family." My voice stayed flat. "You weren't thinking about family when you tried to put me in a police car," I said. My father stepped forward half a pace. "Mara," he said, sharp now, "you're making a mistake." The older officer moved with him, subtle but firm, maintaining space. "Sir," he said, "step back." My father froze. Not because he respected me, because he respected uniforms. That detail told me everything I needed to know about the kind of man he was. The younger officer took my statement for charges, and the older officer documented the audio coaching, the device metadata, and the false timeline. They didn't arrest my father in the lobby. They didn't slap cuffs on my sister in front of gym members. Real life isn't always that neat. But they did something more powerful for someone like me. And they created an official record that my sister couldn't talk her way around. And they warned my father plainly that any attempt to contact me or retaliate would be treated as intimidation in an active investigation. I walked out of the station into late evening air with my phone in my pocket and my shoulders steady. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean. Because the story that was supposed to ruin me had finally turned and labeled them instead. 2 days later, my bank called. Not the business bank, my personal bank. A fraud specialist asked me, "Ms. Monroe, did you attempt to add an authorized user to your account yesterday?" "No," I said. She exhaled. "We blocked it," she said. The request came from an in-person branch visit. The person presented identification in your father's name and claimed he had family permission. Family permission, even after the station, even after the warning. They were still trying. I forwarded the bank email to the detective. And I didn't call my father to scream. I didn't call my sister to threaten. I did the only thing that mattered. I walked into the bank with my ID and asked for a fraud lock, a note on my profile, and a requirement for in-person verification with a passphrase only I knew. The banker typed, nodded, and said, "Done." Then I went to my gym the next morning anyway. Same hour, same headphones, same focus. Because I refused to let a lie change my routine. And when I scanned in at the turnstile, as the front desk employee, still looking slightly traumatized, gave me a small nod like he was silently apologizing for watching. I nodded back. Not because I needed his apology, because the record had already given me what I needed. A week later, the detective called. "We pulled the full call file," he said. "Your father's device was used. The report submission came from his account, and your sister's phone shows draft notes for the narrative before the call was placed." Draft notes. A script. Just like I'd suspected, he didn't tell me what would happen next in dramatic terms. He told me what mattered. "We have enough to proceed," he said, "and you did the right thing by staying calm." That helped. When the call ended, I sat in my car for a long minute with my hands on the steering wheel. And feeling something like relief settle in, not because my family suddenly became decent, but because their weapon had failed. They tried to take my life with a report. And the institution didn't save me because I begged. It saved me because I gave it something it could act on. Timestamps, audio, metadata, a record. What would you have done? Walk away and cut them off or press charges like I did? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.